Welcome to Where Are They Now? We reach into the archives of Lenape, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Seneca High Schools and invite selected alumni to share memories and fill us in on their career paths after commencement. Since Lenape's first graduating class in 1961, Shawnee's in 1972, Cherokee's in 1978, and Seneca's in 2005, over 75,000 individuals have received diplomas from these four schools.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now? I'm Mark Sonsini, a 1996 graduate of Cherokee High School, and today we'll be speaking with a Shawnee alumnus from the class of 1995. He is the head coach of the Cornell University men's basketball team, residing in Ithaca, New York. I'd like to welcome Brian Earl to the show today. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here today. Thanks for joining us. Can't wait to hear all about your career in basketball, but first let's talk about your time at Shawnee. You grew up here in Medford Lakes?
Yes, grew up in Medford Lakes for my whole life through college, and know it well. My mother's still in the same house that myself and my brother were in for 25 years, so it's good to talk to some people from back home.
Terrific. You mentioned your brother Dan, Shawnee class of 93. Any other family members at Shawnee?
No other family members at Shawnee. I have a younger sister who went to Morristown, was a very good basketball player there. But we were the only two Earls that went to Shawnee.
Okay. So basketball definitely runs in the family. Let's talk about a couple of the teachers who had a big impact on you at Shawnee. One obviously would be Mr. Joe Kessler.
Right. So I'm sure he's a great teacher, but he was my coach, and really did a great job of sort of turning a program that hadn't done much into a national powerhouse while we were there. And so he remains a great friend, and really at the time was a young coach, unproven, and we went on to do some really great things. So he obviously has become a bit of a legend at Shawnee, and has earned everything that people say about him, and remains close to myself and my brother and my family.
That's good. And Ingrid Williams was another staff member there who had an impact on you.
Right. Yeah. Miss Williams was a teacher of mine towards the end of my career, and as happens sometimes, I think it was my senior year, I lost a little bit of incentive to do everything that was asked of me. She really stayed on top of me. She made sure that outside the classroom as well, that I was sort of engaged, which was always a struggle of mine at Shawnee. And so, teachers do a lot for you in the classroom, but she was one who made sure that I was staying on top of it socially as well.
Back to basketball, which definitely was not a struggle for you at Shawnee. Your first 3 seasons there, you guys were undefeated in South Jersey play. You had a Tournament of Champions victory, another appearance, a couple of state title appearances. Tell us about your time at Shawnee basketball.
Yeah, I mean it was a great time, and as a young person, I had obviously a brother who was an All-American and earned his time, but Coach Kessler sort of threw me into the fire as a freshman, as a 15-year-old starting guard, and we ended up winning 32 games and winning the Tournament of Champions that year. And so looking back on it now as a 44-year-old, to think that at 15 I was sort of thrown in front of thousands of people to see what I was made of, I really appreciate that, and may not have earned it, but Coach Kessler sort of put me in there, and really a lot of great memories from that first year. Obviously, we were not counted on to be that good and ended up as a top 10 team in the country. And then following that sophomore year, where we all matured a little bit, a little more disappointing, a lot more responsibility on the team that we may not have lived up to by losing in the state championship. And then as that crew graduated. Myself and Malik Allen, who's now an assistant coach with the Miami Heat, and some other guys, Brian Bouchard and J.R. Gillern, managed to build it back up to where we were again one of the best teams in the country by senior year.
So you mentioned being kind of thrown in there as a 15-year-old freshman. What was that experience like? Was that a lot of pressure? Did you thrive on the opportunity? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure. I can remember not knowing if I was going to be starting until a few minutes before the first game, and you just sort of take it as it comes, and I made a lot of mistakes, and one of the things you learn from that is to let people make some mistakes. Now that I'm a coach, and Coach Kessler allowed me to make a lot of mistakes as a young player, and we turned out the better for it, I think. But you had to live with a lot those first few games when there's 1,000 people in the stands, and the last game you played was as an 8th grader in front of 20. It makes
right.
a big difference. But my teammates, my brother, my coaches, they all sort of got behind me, and something I always will appreciate.
Well, you definitely rose to the occasion. As we talked about the first 3 years, terrific seasons, and even your senior year in 1995, you were the Philadelphia Inquirer Player of the Year. That must have been a pretty big honor for you.
Yeah, it was, and that was maybe up there with the freshman sophomore teams as the best team we played on. I think we were maybe 30-1. We played against Vince Carter, who was an NBA Hall of Famer. A couple other NBA guys, and it was nice to carve out my own niche as a very good team. Had the unfortunate thing of fouling out in my last game in the third quarter, and was not really the best game of my life. I never played too much defense in high school, and somehow I managed to foul out in the third quarter. But it doesn't stick with me to this day.
Well, that's all right. You had more success to come. After your senior year, you earned some offers from Princeton and Penn. You went to Princeton University, studied economics, along with obviously playing basketball, and more success there with Ivy League championships in your first 3 years.
Yes, yeah, it was very memorable experiences there. Freshman year, we sort of eked out a title and went on to play UCLA, who was the defending national champion in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and sort of an iconic moment where we won the game on a backdoor layup in what was my coach's final win as a Hall of Fame coach. His name was Pete Carrill. And so we played that game in front of, I think, around 30,000 people, millions on TV. So really great experiences starting with that freshman year. That was again, a little bit rough as a learning curve. But, the following 2 years, we ended up winning the title again and going to a couple more NCAA tournaments.
So you talked about a few minutes ago going from 8th grade playing in front of 20 to freshman year at Shawnee playing in front of maybe 1,000. Then you go to freshman year at Princeton playing in front of 30,000. What was that like, especially in the NCAA tournament? That's probably, I imagine, a dream of any kid growing up playing basketball, that you want to play in that.
Yeah, I mean, you finally see that you're there, and people are paying attention, and you're out there in basically a football stadium playing in front of all these people, and you're on CBS and everything. And so, it's a good moment to realize that the days that you put in outside at the park, putting your shots up and doing all the work that it takes, that it pays off when you have those memories, and those videos and those moments are out there obviously now with social media and YouTube.
Sure.
That they'll never go away, and so you have that to take with you with your teammates, and when you guys get back together, to be something you can share and be proud of.
So 3 appearances in the tournament, and then in your senior year, you're captain of the team. and you were also the Ivy League Men's Basketball Player of the Year, another huge honor.
Yeah, it was a huge honor. I would have traded it for another NCAA appearance, but we had a good year that year, and there was a little bit more onus on me to produce, which was fun to do, and we got better as a team. I got better as a player, but again, could have used another NCAA berth.
So a couple of records from your time at Princeton. You hold the Princeton record for 113 games started, 281 three-pointers, which was also an Ivy League record for 11 years, and an Ivy League record of 95 wins in 4 seasons. Those are some pretty good numbers. Yeah,
I appreciate you bringing them up as well. It's a good stroke of the ego, but it's a team sport in the end, and so there were a lot of guys who I played with there and also at Shawnee that were a huge part of it. But winning makes everything fun, and we had a lot of fun during those Princeton and Shawnee years, and most of what you take away is the memories with your teammates.
So after Princeton, you play a little bit professionally in Germany and England, and then back to the States in a couple of leagues here in the United States. You spent some time. And then also at that time, you're kind of transitioning to your economics career degree, and you start 4 years working with Sallie Mae.
Right. So what happens is when you're done playing in college, you sort of get released to the world, and you're not a part of a program, which I look back and realize that I probably thrived a little bit more in the structure of knowing what your role is. And so I went overseas and played a little bit in Germany, a year in England, a little bit in the United States. And unlike sort of the NBA veterans who have retirement announcement, you just sort of fade into life. And so once that was over, overseas and playing a little bit in America in sort of the minor leagues, I got in with Sallie Mae, who was the CEO of the company, was from Medford, and he hired people he knew and trusted, and I was one of them. And I had a good time there, sort of learning something new after being willing to step away from basketball for a little while.
And you mentioned about, sort of at the end of your basketball career, how, it kind of fades away. Was that difficult for you to deal with after, being in the spotlight, at Princeton and Shawnee for all those years? Was that hard for you to kind of deal with, kind of moving away from that?
Yeah, it is what it is. And most people will go through these things in life. You don't know when to hang it up necessarily, and you feel like you have a little bit more in the tank, but it's not always the case where you can sort of push your way through in that environment where it's a bit of the Wild West, where you have to hook on with the right team, do the right thing, and some injuries, and then just sort of knowing it might be time to move on. It happens gradually, and it's not sort of a set day where that happens. But luckily, I finished my degree at Princeton. I knew some great people, including Tim Fitzpatrick, who was the CEO of Sallie Mae, and was able to move pretty quickly into my new life.
So that new life outside of basketball didn't last for too long before Princeton came calling, and you become the assistant coach back at Princeton. Tell us about that and how that came about.
Right, yeah. So there was a change in the Princeton coaching staff, and one of my former teammates was hired as the head coach. And I was relatively happy at Sallie Mae, and I remember at a wedding, and he just called up and said, "We need you back at Princeton." And so you had to do a little soul searching and figure out what that was going to look like, and eventually joined the staff as an assistant coach and took a beating in our first year, and really a lot of times wondered if that was the right decision. But we turned it around over the next 4 years and ended up going to the tournament in that 4th year and played Kentucky.
Terrific. And you were there for 9 seasons. You were primarily worked with the defensive side of things there. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did both sides, and it turns out, although I wasn't the greatest defender, I like telling people how to play defense. So
that's where I was going with that. You mentioned earlier that you didn't play a lot of defense, especially at Shawnee.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how they slotted you into that defensive role there as an assistant coach.
Yeah, I don't know. The life is strange, but it's easier to explain to people how to play than actually play it yourself. But yeah, we did. It was a collaborative effort too. So the other assistants helped me, and I obviously know a few things about offense as well. But enjoyed sort of learning the concepts of the newest concepts that were going on in basketball with regard to defense.
So as I said, you were there for 9 seasons as the assistant coach at Princeton, and then in 2016, you become the head coach where you are now at Cornell University. Tell us how that happened.
Right. So there was a coaching change at Cornell, and when these things happen, there are a lot of people who want that head coaching job. It's a tough, competitive world to get a head coaching job. And so, like anything else, you try to improve in how you interview. You try to talk to the people who will talk to the people who make the decision. And so it was a lot of it, the success we had at Princeton, but also a lot of it continuing to improve. And it wasn't basketball this time or academics. It was, how do you get a job? How do you interview? And that was a big part of it. So ended up getting lucky and getting that call to be the head coach. And
you guys made your first Ivy League tournament appearance in 2018 and first postseason appearance since 2010 in the 2019 CIT tournament. So how are you feeling about how things are going there?
Well, we have been trending up for a few years. Last year, we took a bit of a step back. The issue with coaching sometimes is all that anyone looks at is your record. And last year, we didn't have as many wins as we would have liked to. But part of that is to make sure, as a coach, you take a step back and look at what you looked like at the beginning of the season versus what you looked at like at the end of the season. And I felt that we were much better, even though we had some wins we left on the table. Was pretty happy considering we were going to have basically the entire team back, learning from a lot of those losses last year. Unfortunately, this year won't happen for us, so that plan went down the tubes a little bit. But we, I think it's important to know that we improved and keep that at the back of your mind.
So you mentioned, the 2020 season. Talk about, how COVID has affected your program and what's going on with your team.
Right. So the Ivy League has decided that we're not going to play any games this year as a league, and we're the only ones to do that. So it's really thrown a lot of a curveball into a lot of people's lives here. Obviously mine, but more importantly, my players who won't get to compete this year. So we have had a chance at Cornell. We brought a lot of the players back, and we're able to do some workouts, socially distant, but it's been a hard time. And so we're looking forward to next year. We're trying to get our guys back and try to help them improve as much as we can, as much as Cornell will allow in the spring. Mm-hmm. But it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year to acknowledge that we're not going to have a season with a team that we thought would be pretty good this year. And
someone you have to probably bounce things off of, your brother Dan, and we mentioned earlier, is also a Division I coach at VMI. You guys are one of quite a few, only a few set of brothers to be head coaches in Division I. What's that like, having him there to kind of, talk things over and bounce ideas off of? I assume you guys do that from time to time?
Yeah, it's good now that we're coaches, and with the distance, he can't put me in a headlock anymore, so that helps. Yeah, I mean, we're in very similar situations, not sort of the blue bloods of the college, the men's basketball world. And so we talk a lot about the tricks of the trade and how to try to squeeze as much as we can out of the players and the staffs and the strategies that we can go through. So he's playing now. He played last night. He'll play tomorrow. So I've been recently sort of taking that role of criticizing everything that he does as a coach, which is helpful to my ego a little bit. So I'm happy about that.
Let's talk about your family now. You married Jennifer in 2009, and you guys have 3 sons together. Yes,
married in 2009, and now we have three boys who keep us on our toes. They're into athletics. They're very active. As many of the parents know, that's a lot to deal with. Boys never stop going. So I'm staying healthy from a physical perspective, mostly due to them.
Are they playing rec basketball teams or anything yet? What's going on with that? Do they know their dad is kind of a big deal?
A little bit, as much as we can. It's difficult with the virus. We'll get outside, and it's snowing today, and we might get out there and try to run them a little bit. They're into whatever's athletic that season, so we try to keep them having fun, whatever they're doing, soccer, football, basketball, whatever it takes.
Do they know their dad's kind of a big deal in basketball, or are they just like, whatever, it's dad?
Yeah, they're not too impressed by me. I try to pull up some clips from time to time, but it doesn't really do the trick. They're always looking at the guys I played against,
right.
Rather than who I was.
That part is not so good for your ego, right?
I'm sorry?
That part is not so good for your ego.
No, not so much. Not so much. It is. Yeah. I need to make a highlight tape. A lot of times I'll get highlight tapes from recruits, and anyone looks like an NBA player in those. So that's my next thing.
There you go. Basketball definitely keeps you busy, and the kids keep you busy. What kind of stuff, kind of interest in your free time, even stuff related to basketball? What have you been doing?
Yeah, there's multiple organizations in the men's coaching world. Coaches for Change is one of them that we've been dealing a lot with the sort of the racial strife in the country, talking that through with our teams and with other coaches. Coaches Against Cancer is another one that we'll deal with a lot. But a lot of it is the coaching, and we're recruiting constantly, always on the phone or reaching out to kids. We're managing our players. Obviously, I have three boys who keep me busy. So when I get a few minutes at the end of the day, it's mostly reading and just trying to downshift from the rigors of the job.
Sure. Well, Brian, congratulations on all your success since Shawnee. We wish you nothing but the best in the future. And it was really great talking with you today. Thanks for joining us, and stay well.
Thank you very much. It was great being here.
And that's all for this episode of Where Are They Now? For other Lenape District alumnus interviews, check us out online at youtube.com/Lenape District TV. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.